Thank you, everybody, for attending this session here. We're going to be talking about Onshape, and then we're going to be leveraging the geometry we create here and creating 3D parts. But let's start off with kind of where we're going with this. I have an initial design here. This is our current design that our customer is using. But with the new model here coming out, they want to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to go in and make some changes to this to try to update it for a new look, and we'll kind of use Onshape for doing that. So I'm doing everything here totally in the cloud. Let's start off by, I'm kind of coming up with some ideas in my head here. I want to maybe punch some holes in this and make this look a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to do is start off with a curve, and then I'm going to make a series of cuts and have it follow that curve. So pretty simple concepts here. I'm just going to start off here, and then let's follow this up, maybe up to a point right here. So now I've got the start of this curve. And the thing is that Onshape allows us to create kind of a tangency drag arm here that I can manipulate. So it's real geometry. I could take this and say, let's make it horizontal, right? Or I could come in and say, let's put some dimensions on it. I can control it, the length of this dimensionally. The longer it is, the more pull that it puts on our curve that we have here. I can come in and just add a couple other dimensions to kind of lock down our particular spline that we're sketching right here. And maybe let's make this value, maybe like an inch, and we'll kind of dimension some things here. So as you can see, it's a very intuitive, easy to use type of an interface. We're actually kind of touching on some areas that I typically don't do too much in these presentations, a little bit more of kind of the organic type of shape that we might want to have. Let's change some of these values, make it so it isn't so tight. So once I have, kind of the initial shape that I want here, I'm going to want this curve to go on the other side too. So I'm just going to take advantage of symmetry here and just say, let's just mirror that about the center plane here. So now we've got two halves. But now we can think about, what kind of hole do we want to use to kind of pattern along here. So I'm just going to go in and say, let's use an ellipse. I'm just going to kind of drag a shape here. We could say maybe make it like this, give it some values. And so here's the shape of the ellipse. So this is kind of the sketch that I want to work with. We can take a look at it here if I kind of spin it around. So I've been sketching on a plane up here, but I want to project that back down and use this ellipse that I made to kind of punch a hole in our part. So I'm just going to grab this, say let's extrude it out. We want to remove material, make it go all the way through. So now we've got a cut. And what I'd really like to do is kind of now pattern that, as I mentioned before, along these curves that I made. So we can go in and just use a pattern along a curve, and we'll just say, let's take this hole that we've created here, and we're going to want to pattern that along this curve that we see here. So right now the value is 2, and it puts one at the end of the curve here. Let's include this. Now it's just one on either end. We probably want a few more than that just to make it look a little bit more interesting. When it creates these cuts along the curve, we can see that it's following the curve, and maybe I want to keep them in their original orientation. So it's very easy for me just with a click to put that in, and now we've got our profile, and it looks a little bit better. Up until now, everything I've been doing has been typical CAD stuff, right? You could do this on really any CAD system. What I'm going to start doing now are things that you can't do on any other CAD system. So first of all, everything that I've done so far here today has been saved. So there is no save button in Onshape. Everything is captured, and we can see all the commands that I've used so far here today. One of the things, and this is sort of our history tree. Now that I have this done, maybe this is at a point where I'm going to say, let's make a version here of this. So basically taking a snapshot in our history, and let's just call it our holes version, and we'll create that. So we can see in the history tree now there's a point called holes, and I can go back to this point at any time I want and revisit this, or I can go back to really any point in history and revisit that. But now that we have this, I can go in and start to think about some things that I want to do or want to have done to this part to make it a little bit more updated. I'm good at punching holes and things, but the more artistic type of thing, I'm not so good at. So I'm going to actually invite another guy from our company to kind of help me out here. So this is where we're going to go in and I'm going to share this design. So I'm going to say, I want to share this. And I can share it with teams of people, the manufacturing group, the purchasing group. I can invite individual guests. I'm just going to pick an individual in our company. I start to type in their name. And I'll say, let's share it with Nick. In sharing it with him, I can control exactly what he can do when he accesses this part. So I don't really want him to export it anywhere, but yeah, he can comment on it and make copies of it. That's fine. So I'll say, let's share this to Nick. So Nick gets an email. And it basically is just saying, you've been invited, click on this link and you can see the part. So Nick is gonna log in here. I'm gonna move my screen over a little bit here. I'm gonna call Nick up. And so Nick's gonna come over here and I'm gonna drag his window over. He clicked on the link and he can see the exact same part that I see. He can zoom in, zoom out, things like that. One of the things we can also do is we can do what's called a follow mode, and I could zoom in on a particular area and he would see that, and I could spin it around and he can see that as well. So it's a very easy communication tool. If we're not co-located, he could be somewhere totally different and we can still communicate back and forth. I can point out certain things that I want to have done here. And Nick's still free, right, to go in and move things around if he wants to do that as well. So let's go over and make some changes to our part here. I'm going to say, well, we can take a look at what we've been doing here. And we've made this moment in time, these holes. And I don't know exactly what Nick's going to do, but I'm going to go over here and say create a branch. And I'm going to say, let's just call it like Nick's idea. And so we're creating a branch in our tree over here. And I'm going to let Nick work on that. So it's sort of like doing a save as, but it's way better than a save as because now I don't have other files or other places where it might get lost. It's all part of our same design. And really what I want to say to him is communicate to Nick. I could just say, you know, I don't know, can you add a design? And I know what he's going to say. He's going to say, where or what? What do you want to, what are you talking about? So I'm going to say, let's go in and maybe make a markup too. And I could just come in, this kind of sketch the area over here and say, you know, add the design right there. So now I'm kind of adding a markup to our design. I can say, let's send that over to Nick. He can look at his markups over here. And he can see that that's been added and he can comment back to me. He could say, you know, sure, no problem, and add that back. So let's take a look at Nick now. You know, I can communicate to him that you need to use this other, one of the things, let's kind of verify a couple things here. First of all, that we are working on the same part. You saw that as I would spin it, it could follow Nick. But if I were to go in here and say, let's change something. Let's change this value to like 3. As soon as I hit this check mark, watch Nick's screen. I got to do it on, let's try this again. I am using the saved version. I'm going to go on to the same one that Nick is sitting at right now. There we go. Same type of thing. So I'm going to go over here and say, let's change this value to 3. And when I update that, we can see it update on Nick's, right? So the exact same thing happens. So we are working on the same one. So now he's going to go and work on the version over here that I said is Nick's idea. And I'm going to continue working on the main branch of the tree, right? The main area that you can see right here. And I could come in this particular case, and say, you know, I want to change the color of this part. We want to kind of update the design. We might as well update the color as well, make it a little bit more appealing, hopefully. You'll notice that now when I change the color, Nick doesn't see that, right? Because he's working on a branch. And so he can do his work, I can do my work and continue on developing this product. And then we can kind of meet in the middle and figure out what we want to do next. So I'm going to take Nick and kind of expand him out a little bit and do some things that he can do better than me. And in this particular case, what he's going to want to do is bring in some information from another part. So here he can bring in a whole part or part of a part. And in this case, he's brought in some information here. It was a sketch that we used in a previous design to kind of augment another part that we were working on or another design, and we can kind of leverage that again here. This might be the logo of the company we're working with or whatever. So one of the things that I want to do with this is I'm going to use something called a wrap. But basically, I'm just going to say I want to take this geometry and project it down onto the surface that we see here. And I want it to remove material, but really not all the way through. We could give it a less than that distance, something like that. So now Nick's come up with this design. That looks pretty good. You know, it's better than I would have done. One of the things that we can do now is, I'm going to kind of move him back a little bit, is he could send me, obviously, another comment. I could come over here and say, let's look at the history of what's been going on. I'm looking at mine. I can go over and look at his. Now we can have a formal review. I can invite other people to do this, to take a look at what's been done, if we want to move forward with this design, if we want to make modifications to it. If I do like what he has done and I want to include it in my design, I can just pick on what he's done and say merge it in. And now his design is now merged with mine, and now we have the new design, different color, has my holes and the different embossment that Nick added. And obviously, you know, if we go back to the drawing that was created for this initially, this is the drawing of, you know, version number, the first initial design that we started out with. And we're going to say, let's just update that to the things that Nick and I have added to this. And this gives us a really good idea, then a good documentation tool for not only physically creating drawings, but also creating a 3D model that we can work with. Now, the thing that I can do as well is that I can share this. So we noticed before when I was doing a share, I shared it with Nick. In this case, I want to also share it with somebody else. Now, Nick has edit capabilities, right? It says right there. So he could go in and make changes to the geometry in that. I can do something called link sharing. And I'm going to say, turn on link sharing, and let's copy that to the clipboard. And then I'm going to paste this in an email. So here's an email, and I'm just going to say, let's paste that link there, and then we can send that. So I'm sending it to my buddy Matt, who does the 3D printing. And what he's going to get, and I'm going to stop sharing it with Nick, by the way. So I'm going to say, no longer does Nick have access to this. Let's drag my window over here a little bit bigger. And so Matt would get an email with the link in it. If he clicks on the link itself, he would see exactly what I've shared here. He could see the drawing, he could see the model, he could spin around. He can't change anything, but he has it in view mode. And so he can go in and do measurements. If it's an assembly, he could explode it out and things like that. Without ever using a license, without having to download anything, he would still have access to what I have shared with him. But the thing is that the customer we're dealing with, they want a 3D part. They want to hold it in their hands. They want to physically see a representation of this. You know, the shaded model isn't enough for them. And also they could use it in a prototype, right? So the best thing for me to do at this point would be to take this and send a different type of information to Matt. I'm just going to say, let's export this design out. And I can send it out as an STL file. I can send it out as, you know, you can see a variety of different types of files here. Also with the STL, I can control how refined this particular file is. So in this particular case, you know, I can dial it in to make it, you know, real small tessellation, give us a little bit better quality. And I could say, okay, let's send this out. So this automatically creates our STL file. I could take a look at it here. Here's the STL file. Again, I could send this to him in a variety of different ways, but this is the file that we're going to send over, and Formlabs is going to take that in and create a 3D print of this, of our part. So with that, I'm going to roll the presentation now over to Matt so he can talk a little bit about the Formlabs product.
All right. Hey guys, happy Thursday. My name is Matt Sasseville. I'm the additive manufacturing specialist here at EAC. So I help our customers bring 3D printing solutions in-house to save time and money over outsourcing. So welcome to our demo suite. Behind me here, I want to show you the printer that we use to print the part that I'm going to show you in a minute. So behind me, this is a Form 3. It's our desktop SLA resin-based printer. It's a great, affordable, and easy to use option to pair with Onshape to, again, bring that process in-house and have complete control over your 3D printing and the parts that you're creating. So I just wanted to show you the part here that I use the Form 3 to print. So this is the part that Bill was showing you guys in the Onshape demonstration. So right here, this is before. And leave that up for a little bit. All right, and then this is afterwards. So as you can see, all the circles around the edges, as well as the design in the middle. So in this model, we use the standard gray material, but Formlabs has a wide variety of different materials that you can use depending on your application. So Formlabs also has a larger format 3D printer right here. So behind me is the Form 3L. So you can use to print larger parts, up to 5 times the build volume of what I just showed you guys. So like this large base, as well as this bigger vacuum nozzle. So yeah, it's a great way to print any consumer parts or design iterations that you want. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys here in the demo suite at EAC. Thank you.